Hello, class. This is your professor, Dr. Jace K. Austin, and welcome to week one. That is right, week number one of your 9407 class, which is Intellectual Freedom and its Discontents. I am just kind of in a place right now, so we're going to make it through this check-in video. And I will, like I said, do check-in videos probably most weeks, either on Monday or Tuesday, okay? And so I'm doing this one on a Tuesday. And I am zapped for energy right now, not because of the weekend and doing the course, it's actually other things. So I will be a little more lively in future videos, but this is just one of those days, I think, one of those times. So what we're going to do in this check-in video is we're going to just look around the course as is right now, do a little bit of a course overview. But I am going to share a few words first, and then after I do the course overview, then I am going to talk about some personal things that I have with this week's discussion prompt. One thing that I want to do right now, though, is tell you all that you can speed these videos up. I'm going to show you how to do that. So I upload these videos to YouTube, and what you can do in order to speed a video up is, I am trying to find something. Okay.
I don't care about the funny way you wear your
Okay, so if you want to speed a video up, here's what you would do. You can hear normal speed here. And what you can do is you can come here to this little... I don't know what happened there. Okay, so here, you can come here to settings and you can adjust playback speed and you can speed it up. I'm going to show you, you'll notice the difference. Okay, so that is how you can speed up a video. I talk very slowly, so you may want to speed up my videos when I am talking. And from here, let's get into just a few words, and then we will get into the course overview. Okay, so as far as what I want to say about the, and by the way, when I did the little playback speed thing, you probably want to speed me up to at least 1.25, if not 1.5. And you'll still be able to understand the things that I say probably at 1.5 because I talk so slow. I'm from the South, that's how we do. But what I want to say is this is Tuesday when I'm recording. It's just it's intense. One of the other professors at Mizzou, and if you want to find out about this, I'm going to leave you to do your own research. I'm not going to put him on blast. But there was another professor at Mizzou who made a bad joke that was not taken well in the morning on Monday. And by Monday night, he had lost his job. And I have a lot of feelings, a lot of conflicting feelings, but all I can say is, I just don't know. I don't know where we go. I just don't. I don't know where we go from here. I don't know what happens when it comes to, I think everybody's kind of walking on eggshells these days. And I also think that everybody is needing protection there's no other way to put it. I think that there are a lot of vulnerable populations out there that need protection. And there are also a lot of people out there that are having a hard time watching where they step. And they're walking on these eggshells, and I just don't know where it ends. I don't know how this reaches its logical conclusion. Um, I'm going to share one of my own experiences from when I was an undergrad at the University of North Carolina at Wilmington, and that's going to come up again after I do the overview. But when I was at UNCW, this is something that happened to me, and it was fine just 15 years ago, really 16 years ago. It was fine 16 years ago, but it wouldn't be fine, I guess, now. But UNC Wilmington is a predominantly white university. Really, at the time that I was there, it was about 91% white, 4% black, and then there were other. And so most of the time in class, there were no more than three black people in a class, myself included. And I remember I was in English class once, and a professor that we all loved, I won't name him, but because I don't want you to Google him, but a professor that everybody loved and everyone should love. We were in English class, and at the time I was pledging a fraternity, right? So I was tired. I was tired coming into class during the day because I was up all night, pledging and everything. And so I fell asleep in this class, and the professor, who was white, woke me up, and he asked me why I was sleeping in class, and I said what my dad used to always say. My dad used to always say, "Oh, I'm not asleep. I'm checking my eyelids for cracks." And the professor, who again, was a guy that people generally loved, he responded to that by saying, because I had apparently mushed up my words or whatever, I was tired. He said, "I didn't understand that." Oh, and then he goes, "Oh my God, I've got a black kid in here talking about crack. What do I do?" And here's the thing. This was a class of about 25 students. Three of us were black. Me and the two other black students laughed because this professor was respected and liked by the black students on campus, myself included. And the three of us laughed, and the white students in the class just kind of looked like they didn't know what they could laugh. They just looked shocked. And there was an awkward moment, and then class proceeded. And I've been in contact with that professor since then. Not in recent years, but definitely after graduation, still stayed in contact with him. Still very much hold him in high regard. And he's never, to my knowledge, had issues with students of color complaining about things that he said. And I say this just to say that, you know, I don't know, I don't know the future of humor. That's the best way that I can put it. And I like to, I came of age in the 90s. I graduated from high school in 2001. So I was in K-12 from 88 to 2001, the entire 90s. And the 90s were that time of more so like edge, and think of the things that we got in the 90s. We got South Park, we got Beavis and Butthead, we had gangster rap, which me and all of my friends were listening to throughout our entire, we were listening to it. Gangster rap really came out in the late 80s, and I listened to it throughout. And it was just part of my formation as a person. But it was like edge was almost, I used the word edge. Edge was almost appreciated in the 90s. It was like being edgy was kind of something that people celebrated back then, right? And times are different now, and I understand that. I think times really changed dramatically overnight with 9/11, and then they've continued to change. And so, but that joke, again, that professor in my undergrad told about the crack, that would have been 2004. And because that's when I joined the fraternity. And so this was after 9/11, but it was still a time where it was a time where ignorance could be hated, but clever comedy that was well intentioned and not meant to hurt anyone could be uh, it could be seen, I guess, in a different way. And then also, um, I think that we're more attuned now to how vulnerable populations can be. And so, yeah, I think one thing that's changing in society right now is that I think for the first time we are actually decreasing. Well, for the first time in my life, and I feel for the first time in recent decades, seems like we're decreasing what's acceptable versus increasing. And I think that that's got some people confused. Um, I like just kind of watching old sitcoms and seeing what was controversial then that wouldn't be controversial now and that sort of thing. One thing that I like to look at is I like to compare these two sitcoms, right? When I was a kid, and I know I'm dating myself for those of you who were really young, but when I was a kid, there was a sitcom that was seen as edgy and that was a guilty pleasure watching. The sitcom was called Married with Children. And it was definitely a sexist sitcom. I am gonna put that out there right away. And it was a sitcom that was very controversial at the time. Now, one thing that I say about this Married with Children show, though, is that the sexist characters were also losers. I'll just keep it real. So the actually two of the most successful people on the sitcom were uh, neighbors of the main characters. The neighbor characters were Marcy and Steve in the beginning, and they didn't have the sexism issues that the main characters had, and they were more successful. It was a couple of bankers versus the main character, who's a raging sexist. Al is a shoe salesman, right? And he's a loser. He's an all-around loser. His family hates him. He doesn't make money. All of these things. But yeah, it was a sitcom that had a lot of problems. But I think it was a sitcom that also maybe, and please feel free to disagree. You can go into the fun stuff section and talk it out. But I felt that it was a sitcom uh, that it had a sexist nature, but then it also lampooned sexism, and it showed you how what a misogynist should be in society. If you're a misogynist like Al, then you should be, I guess, regulated to selling shoes and living the life of a loser and being manipulated by your family. Um, Anyway, that was one of the sitcoms, and I compare that sitcom to a sitcom that was not seen as controversial, but that may have been uh, just as I don't know. There were things about this sitcom 2 decades later called Two Broke Girls that I think a lot of people would also see as problematic. Some of the things that I remember in Two Broke Girls, there were a lot of, racist jokes. There were a lot of gender fluidity jokes with one of the characters who was he was an Asian character who was somewhat effeminate. And so they would joke on, I guess, his nature for that. And there were even, there were jokes, there were even, jokes about, you know, what I would feel would be sexual assault. There was like one of the main characters, she joked about this interest that her uncle had in her or something of, it was something of that nature. And, this was a show that, again, it was a show that wasn't seen as edgy. Okay. Um, Married with Children, edgy. Two Broke Girls, 2 decades later, not edgy. But I think that they were comparable in the types of things that they talked about, and they were comparable in the type of humor that they relied on, in my opinion. Now, the reason I say that is because it seemed like that edge got normalized in um in society, so that really what was seen as edgy during the late 80s and the 90s, during the run of Married with Children, was no longer seen as edgy uh when Two Broke Girls came on TV. And that's why there was, as far as I know, not really any controversy surrounding Two Broke Girls, or not enduring controversy. And I think that one thing that's kind of got some people confused is, if you look at things like television and music, if you look at the arts, it seemed like more and more and more was becoming acceptable. And then we see the reverse. And so now we're saying that, okay, now it's no longer okay. You know, some of the jokes about racism and sexism that you would see in Married with Children and in Two Broke Girls, in the current time in 2020, would either of those shows still be, uh would those shows be, would they enjoy multi-year, multi-season runs, given the climate that we're now in? And I don't know. And it'll just be, I guess, interesting to see how this all, how this all develops. I don't know. Again, I just don't know the future of it, okay? Um, but having said that, what I want to do is be sure that I want to be sure that my students within this course feel comfortable expressing their opinions. I want them also, however, to realize that other people's comfort is important as well. And so, again, I just don't know where we go. And I think that, to be truthful, and this could be a cop out, but to be truthful, I feel that if you say enough, eventually you're going to say something that rubs somebody the wrong way. Uh, I think it's inevitable. And I worry when, I don't know, I just worry about one incident or one bad I guess I'm worried about one bad how do I say this? I'm worried about what happens when using bad judgment once can mean the end of your career. Um, but I think to an extent it's always been the case that one bad move can erase a life of good deeds. Okay. And so, that's where my heart is, and my heart is a little heavy. Um, but we've got work to do. And I love y'all and I want to help make y'all successful. So let's get into this course overview. All right, my loves. So we are again in 9407, Intellectual Freedom and Its Discontents. And I guess the topic is fitting for the first module. The first module is controversial speakers on campus. And again, Mizzou has experienced that just this week, and this is what it's going to be. But so we've got that first module. I hope you enjoy the readings and the discussion, and I am going to come back to share. I'm going to come back to this to share some of my undergrad experiences. So one thing that I want to do is first go through the modules really quick, and then we'll go through the syllabus, and then we'll go through the assignments, okay? So this is our first module, again, is that introduction and controversial speakers on campus. You have a few readings to read there. And from there, next week, we're going to start talking about the First Amendment. And this is not a law class. What you're going to see, you are going to see a lot of legal cases from fine law in your reading for the first part of the semester. And the reason for that is I want to set up a very clear understanding for you of what the First Amendment does and does not protect. And there are a lot of misconceptions in our field because we have a lot of people who are not lawyers playing lawyer. And I could potentially be one of those people, I guess. So I need to be careful. I am not a lawyer. I do not have a law degree. I will say that what I'm talking about with the First Amendment is informed by a law class that I took. I did take a media law class during my PhD coursework at the University of South Carolina. However, that does not make me a lawyer, but it does give me at least a little bit of insight as to how to teach a few things related to the First Amendment. But this is going to be very layman stuff, okay? And we do have at least one lawyer in the class this semester. So I am going to, anyone who has a law degree, if I say anything incorrect or that's not detailed enough, then yes, please feel free to address that with me, because I want the class and address it publicly, like put it in a discussion prompt. I might even take your discussion prompt and make an announcement so that the students have the right information, because that's what we're about. Okay. Now, okay, so like I said, the second module for week 2 is going to be First Amendment basics. You do also need to know about the 14th Amendment, because the First Amendment deals more so specifically with Congress and with the federal government. And the 14th Amendment extends First Amendment protections so that the states also cannot do what the First Amendment forbids the federal government from doing. So due to the 14th Amendment, states can also not impose on your freedom of speech, freedom of press, freedom of religion, freedom of assembly, etc. So we're going to have that. We've also got a few readings as to how ALA deals with the First Amendment. You've probably seen the Library Bill of Rights in your collection development course, but you're going to see it again. And we've got a few other readings there. And then we are going to talk about First Amendment exemptions for a few weeks, actually. So obscenity and child porn, these things are not, they are not protected speech by the First Amendment. If something is deemed obscene, then it is not protected speech, and whoever produced it has no right whatsoever to it's not protected anywhere, okay? So it can be obscenity, can be outlawed. It's not protected. And child pornography, of course, is outlawed. I do want you to do this Miller test in a nutshell video. I think you'll enjoy it. The gentleman who is delivering that video is very comical. I love that guy. And then the Mapplethorpe thing, or Mapplethorpe, I think it's Mapplethorpe though. This happened when I was a child, so I don't remember it, but we talked about it a lot when I was in my PhD program. So I wanted to share that with you as well. But just be warned, if you actually find the Mapplethorpe images, they are going to be disturbing to some of you. Okay, so be forewarned about that. Week number 4, First Amendment exemptions, fighting words, and true threats. And this module is very important because here's the thing: fighting words are not protected speech. In the United States, hate speech, quote unquote hate speech, is protected speech. Okay, so what people do is they use fighting words and hate speech interchangeably. And so it's very important for you to pay attention to this module, because fighting words and hate speech are not one and the same. And you'll see the reasons why in this module. A lot of it just pretty much has to do with the fact that for something to be declared fighting words, more than likely what that means is that by their sheer utterance, there should result some threat to the public peace. Okay. Now, that is not verbatim how it's defined, but that's the concept, that for something to be fighting words, if they are uttered, then that should constitute an actual threat to the peace within the public. Okay. All right. So we'll move on from that. Defamation and blackmail. This is also not protected speech. And I know that at this point, I've got a lot of cases for you to read. You actually might find Hustler v. Falwell very interesting, because these days it is getting, in my opinion, is getting very difficult to distinguish political fact from political parody. But I'm not the only one who has this opinion. It's kind of like people were saying, a few years ago, people were just like, hey, is the Onion even going to survive? How does the Onion compete with reality? And this is not a knock on the current presidential administration. I will admit that I'm not necessarily a fan of the current president, but at the same time, there is room in my class for people of multiple political persuasions. I can't say every political persuasion, because there are some political persuasions that are actually dangerous and, I would say, wrong and bad, and promote violence even. And no, those are not good. So, but definitely, I think that on both sides of the aisle, there are some characters that when you listen to them talk, you're like, is that satire, or is this really happening? So you might like Hustler v. Powell in particular, but then I also want to get to this thing of libel tourism and why librarians should care. So that's a very important American Libraries piece that I want you all to read. Oh God, why did that happen? Okay, moving on to week number 6, incitement into lawless action. That's going to be the last of our exemption modules. And you will have a midterm examination that week, but you'll also learn about Brandenburg versus Ohio and what constitutes incitement under the law. Okay. Then we're going to bring it back to, we're going to get out of the heavy law focus and get back into, with week 7, module 7, we're going to talk about hate speech. And yes, hate speech is protected, and it's actually not really defined. So it might be defined at the state levels, but there's no federal definition for hate speech, except for when it comes to, I believe, like some law enforcement agencies at the federal level, like the U.S. Marshals and the FBI, may operate with some definition just so that they can do some statistical stuff. But I think that's pretty much all you're going to get there, okay? And there are with there being so many law enforcement agencies at the federal level, the FBI, the U.S. Marshals, the United States Postal Service, Inspection Police, they are actually a law enforcement agency. The National Park Rangers, also law enforcement officers. So it is important for them to have some ability to keep statistics. So I think that those law enforcement agencies do have definitions, but not there's no federal, I think, legal or U.S. code definition for hate speech. So hate speech is protected, and you're going to learn more about that. We've also got 2 essays that are optional. What Europe can teach America about free speech, and no, the United States does not need European-style hate speech laws. 2 kind of opposing viewpoints there. By the way, for those of you who are going to be debating, yes, opposing viewpoints might be something that if you can find it at your public library, since Mizzou doesn't have it, it might be something that goes a long way with your research, okay, and with your debate prowess. But yeah, hate speech is regulated in Western Europe more harshly than it is here in the U.S. And whether that's good or bad, I'm going to leave up to you for the time being, but just know that it's different. Week 8, book banning and book challenges. We have some readings associated there, and you are actually going to have an assignment based on book bans and book challenges, so be wary of that, okay? Intellectual freedom and juveniles, that's going to be for week 9, and we've got some selected readings there. And I think you'll find those very interesting. This webinar is going to be pretty long. It's like over an hour. But I think it's a good webinar for you to watch. Meeting rooms. This is difficult. And in fact, one of the biggest library controversies of the last 2 years did concern a meeting room library space programming issue. With the Seattle Public Libraries. You can Google that yourself to find out some more information. And in fact, I think that I prompt you to talk about it in the discussion prompt for week number 10. But here's the thing that I'm going to drive home. When we do talk about the Seattle Public Library issue, people are going to get upset because it's I'll tell you right now. So that issue does deal with gender identity, and it deals with trans issues, and it deals with feminism and people's interpretations of feminism. And it's a very sensitive and touchy subject. And yeah, we're going to have to proceed with caution. But I do not want you all attacking each other, and I do not want you all creating hostile environments for each other. Let's get through this, okay? All right. So, moving on to... Okay. Privacy, patron and user privacy and confidentiality. Please, this is one of those things where I'm not going to yield to differences of opinion. When you get into professional practice, yes, I would like for you to protect patron confidentiality and privacy as hard as you can, okay? We owe it to our patrons, and, librarianship at the crossroads of ICE surveillance, it's a big deal right now, okay? Filters and filtering, another thing that we have to deal with. And filtering does also affect adults who use libraries, not just children. Week 13, librarians, libraries, and self-censorship. This is also a big deal. And we want our librarians to stop self-censoring because they're not doing it for good reasons. Week 14, collection, development, and management concerns. I think that you all are going to enjoy that one. Especially, I really love this intellectual freedom blog entry on the harmful conspiracy theories. I love that. And then finally, we will wrap up with library neutrality. Okay, and if I were, I'll be honest, if I were designing this course yet again, I would probably not make library neutrality the last thing because it's so important. But that hindsight is 2020, so that's what's going to happen. And when I first started devising the modules, I didn't even realize that there was a book questioning library neutrality that you all would be able to read for free through the Mizzou libraries. Okay, so those are our modules. If you have any questions about those, get back at me, and we are going to look next at the syllabus as it is now, but it will be updated. Pause. Okay, so we're back in the syllabus, and the syllabus again will be updated. We're going to add the readings. You saw the announcement that I sent yesterday. So again, I am your instructor, Dr. Jace Austin. With CISLT, I am not based in Columbia like most of the CISLT instructors are. I am actually based in Kansas City, and that way I can work with Western Missouri students within our program and help them out. If you need to email me, please do, austinj@missouri.edu, any place, anytime, anytown, and I will get back to you. So the course description: intellectual freedom is frequently held to be a fundamental value of librarianship. Because of its importance, librarians must be able to define it theoretically and practically in order to completely understand what it means so that it can be defended in practice. Collections, access, and services are all affected by how we define this freedom. As we will see, nothing about intellectual freedom is simple. The course will address the topics in principle and practice. Course objectives: understand the philosophical background of intellectual freedom. Critique the entirety of the thought on intellectual freedom in librarianship and beyond. Realize the kind of the challenges that can arise and the reasons people give for them, and understand the position of and demands on the librarian regarding intellectual freedom. We're not going to have a textbook in this class. I just decided that, I'm going to give y'all a break from buying a textbook for this class. So, no textbook. Course policy is participation is very important, okay? Regular participation on the discussion thread is required. The discussion threads actually count for 36 points out of a 100-point class. So discussion is over a third of your grade. Keep that in mind and participate. This is an intellectual freedom class, so we're going to want to talk to each other. And we're going to want to maybe rattle each other just a little bit. Don't trigger each other, or try not to trigger each other. And then also don't be disagreeable just for the sake of being disagreeable. I think that's kind of a jerk move, But, if you have principles that you're trying to stand by that differ from the principles of a classmate, that is okay. Just as long, be sincere, be nice, be kind, be understanding, try to be empathetic, okay? There are 15 discussion board weeks as indicated in the syllabus. I'm not going to be, even though I've got days of the week listed here, for the most part, as long as you get your statement and your replies up, by Sunday night, you're going to be fine. Late work will automatically be lowered by 25% each day, and assignments more than 3 days late will not be accepted. Now, if you do have things that come up, please just let me know. I always tell my students this, and if you've had me before, as most of you have, then this is nothing new to you. But I definitely, I'm very, very understanding. So it doesn't even have to be, like, of course, there are certain things that go without saying. If your immediate family member dies, of course, you have some, you let me know and you get some leeway with that. But even, if your pet dies, I understand. That's actually more traumatic than people give credit for. If your significant other breaks up with you, it's very, very traumatic. If your significant other breaks up with you on Saturday and the course assignment is due on Sunday night, just email me and say, hey, I got dumped. I'm in a place can I please have a few extra days? I'm going to grant you the extension because I'm human. And I just want people to know that I'm a human who feels human emotions and therefore understands human emotions. And I will give feedback in grading, so that's going to be something big. Okay. Communication, there's some things that I want you all to know from there. Please be checking your Mizzou email on a regular basis. I am not supposed to respond to people who send me messages through Gmail if they are students. So that's something that needs to be known. But I will make every effort to respond to your email within 48 hours. However, if you don't hear from me within 48 hours, please hit me back, okay? Send me another message. And then the inbox function of Canvas, I love it. Those just show up in my inbox as well. If you send me a message through Canvas, it shows up in my email, and that's great. Point values. These are things that I definitely want you all to know. So you're getting points for basically 5 things. There are 36 points for discussion. There are 16 discussion prompts, including your intro, and they will come at 3 points each. You have a 14-point midterm examination, 15 points for 3 sync session attendances, which will be, we have 3 sync sessions, and you get 5 points for each sync session that you attend, for a total of 15 points. 10 points total for the banned book report discussion, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And then the final paper I have not drafted yet, but will be very soon. So that's 100 points total. Here's our scale. Anything below a 75 will be an F. A 75 through an 84 will be a C. A 85 through a 92 will be a B, and then a 93 on will be an A. And then also, I just frankly will give pluses. I will give pluses or minuses to grades based on individual effort that I see and things of that nature. So, for instance, just because you get a 100 does not mean that you're getting an A+. If you manage to get a 100, but I feel that you just still kind of scraped by and you didn't put your best in, I'm recording an A and not an A+. But like, for instance, people who get A+ are going to be very engaging on the discussion board, among other things, okay? So you have that. If you have technology problems, do call the help desk, 573-822-5000, or they do have a toll-free number. And you can also email them at helpdesk@missouri.edu. We do have some academic integrity things that you should be mindful of. No cheating, no plagiarism. You cannot change your grade by hacking into my Canvas. I will definitely try my best to get you kicked out of the program if you hacked into my Canvas site. Do not do that. Academic integrity, we have a pledge for that. The notice of non-discrimination. So, there cannot be discrimination in how I grade or how I approach you all for anything due to race, sex, religion, orientation, sexual orientation, gender identity, age, disability, or status as a veteran, among other things, okay? If you feel harassed or ridiculed, please let me know, and I'm gonna address that. Do not harass or ridicule your classmates. Please don't do that. If you have an issue, if you're differently abled or you have some form of disability and you need accommodations made for you because of that, please check in with the Office of Disability Services, and I can work with them in order to make sure that you are not suffering in silence. Please do not suffer in silence in my class. I want to make sure that I cultivate an environment that works for all of us. Grievance policy. information concerning grade appeals and non-academic grievances can be found in the student handbook. And then the diversity statement is actually very similar to the non-discrimination statement. Like I said, the syllabus will be updated, and when it is updated, I will be sending messages. Now, let's take a look at those assignments, and then after we do the assignments, I'm going to say a few things about my own undergrad experiences that I just wanted to share, and then we'll be done. Okay. So assignments. Okay, this is weird. All right. So we have, first of all, the midterm examination. That will be due on October the 4th at 11:59 p.m. We will be done with the modules for First Amendment exemptions by then, and all the information you're going to need for the midterm, you will get through those first few modules. Now, one thing that I want to say here is that with the midterm, you get 2 attempts, and your grade is going to be the average of both of your attempts. So if you get a 14 the first time, 14 out of 14, just leave it be. But yeah, if you get like a 12 the first time and a 14 the second time, your grade is actually going to record as a 13. And so having said that, what I do want you to know is that the midterm is untimed, and you don't have to use the lockdown browser or anything. So you can actually go back and research and find the answer to those questions. So I would suggest you do that. But a lot of you are just going to remember the answers anyway. Okay? So then we are going to have the banned book report. There it is. So this is worth 10 points. And the banned book report, what you're going to do is, even though it's not due, by the way, until November the 1st, you can do it early. And there's a very crude grading scale with this. But you're going to post your report as a discussion prompt, okay? So what's going to happen is you are going to, each one of you has been assigned a book that has been banned and that you should have some information. You should be able to find some information as to when it was banned, why it was banned, or challenged, and so forth and so on. And you are going to basically put together an essay of between 500 and 1100 words. Really, the shorter the better, because the reason I'm having you do this as a discussion is because I want your classmates to see what you came up with. But you're going to answer these questions and whatever else you can that's interesting to you in essay form about the book that you were assigned and why it was banned. And so again, you'll see all of you have been assigned a book. Hopefully you've only been assigned one, but if you got assigned twice, just let me know. And also, if you got assigned, if you didn't get a book assignment, or if you got the same assignment as one of your classmates, again, let me know. And so, we've got quite a few classics here. Everyone's heard of 1984 and The Color Purple and The Great Gatsby. But there are a few that some of you might not be familiar with. Some of you might not be familiar with Uncle Bobby's Wedding, or I Am Jazz, or The Hate You Give, or My Brother Sam is Dead. So there are a few new ones in here. Well, I shouldn't say new ones, but there are a few that may be a little more obscure. But I Googled around, and I think that with every last book that I included here, you will find enough information out there in order to complete this assignment. But you will have to use your tools, and your tools will include Google, newspaper databases, academic search, Premier, and literature databases. So using those tools, you should be able to pull together all the information you need to complete this assignment satisfactorily. All right, now, one thing that I want to say is when it comes to, let's go back to assignments. When it comes to our synced sessions, we have 3 of those. One will be September the 3rd, which is next week. And then we will also have synced sessions on October the 22nd and on November the 19th. Now, November the 19th is when the debate will be taking place. So I sent out a message about the debate, so you all know about this debate that's coming up. And we are going to have a Zoom debate where we have two teams. One team is going to be pro on the issue of full protection of hate speech by the First Amendment, and the other team will be con. And so I am still working out exactly how the debate will be formatted, but I think what's going to happen is I'm going to give each team probably 15 minutes to explain their side, so 30 minutes total, and then there's going to be a counter, maybe 5 to 7 minutes of counter time, where each team will counter the statements that were advanced by the other team. And then I will also allow for time for the rest of you who are not on one of the teams to cross-examine your classmates and to ask questions and to challenge their perspective on these things. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to put together a Qualtrics survey and have you all complete the Qualtrics survey. And in the end, I will share the results of the Qualtrics survey to see who won, quote unquote, won the debate, but both sides technically have won the debate. We're just going to see we're going to see who your classmates thought won the debate. But as far as I'm concerned, if you compete in the debate, you're a winner if you do your best. And those 6 debate participants will not have to do the final paper. You will be graded on your debate performance, which will probably automatically be a 25-point. As long as you tried your best, and you will be able to bypass that final paper. Okay. But on the other synced sessions, which will be again on September the 3rd and October 22nd, those days I will be leading discussions, and we'll have other types of debates and discussions. And I'm treating those as happy hours, by the way. I have to be serious in most of my courses, but when it comes to this intellectual freedom course, when we do our sync sessions, grab some pizza or some Chinese food, grab a beer or some wine or a rum and coke, and we're just going to have fun because there's enough to be stressed about right now, and this class is not something I want y'all stressing over. Okay. And when I get that final paper prompt finalized, I am going to make an announcement about that. Okay. And from there, I think that that's all I really wanted to do as far as course overview for right now. So what I wanted to do now is just talk about, again, a free speech on campus issue that has kind of been weighing on me. So again, I went to UNCW, the University of North Carolina at Wilmington. This was my undergrad institution. And at UNC Wilmington, we had a professor who was known nationally, criminology professor, Dr. Mike Adams. And I had my own run-ins with Dr. Mike Adams when I was an undergrad. He and I went toe-to-toe on an issue because I did find some things that he was saying racist. And he was he had gotten this reputation. He had gotten this reputation. He was very divisive on our campus, I would say. And when it came to that divisiveness, conservative students just absolutely loved him, and that's fine. I'm not against. I will admit I'm liberal, but I don't have a problem with conservative people. I've got a lot of friends who are conservative, and it just is what it is. I love being able to disagree with friends and still be friends. But when it came to Mike Adams, there was honestly, just a certain amount of, I guess, vitriol that was very divisive. And you would see a very pronounced split where conservative students thought that he was like a champion of free speech. And then a lot of liberal students would say, no, what he says is racist, it's sexist, it's homophobic. And there were things that happened, and you can Google around to learn more about this guy if you want to. I'm gonna click this here. So for instance, the saying of him saying that a black man's biggest obstacle to success is not white racism, it's black culture. I'm not going to say that white racism is the biggest obstacle to the success of a black man, but certainly, I have a problem with somebody who's not in my culture as a black man saying that what is hindering black men is a culture that he's not part of and does not understand. Don't tell me that. And there were some other things that he said that again have been seen as racist or sexist or whatever. What is this? Just got an email from a queer Muslim. If you choose a religion bent on executing you, nothing you can say could be intelligent. Deleted and blocked. And his actions actually even ended up with a student now, a 19-year-old student who she identified as Muslim and identified as queer. He kind of doxed her publicly, and this is a man who has been in academia for decades, doxing a 19-year-old student, and it got so bad that she just had to leave campus. And he's I'm gonna put up I'm gonna look for one more tweet. So okay, so here's something else. Don't shut down universities. Shut down the non-essential majors like women's studies. Okay, and he also tweeted that next time I can't remember verbatim what the tweet said, although this tweet could also be found, but he made a very misogynistic tweet about if you write my university to have me fired, include your address so I can send you a box of panty liners. It was very inappropriate. And thankfully, one thing that happened when he did that was people started challenging him, and then they gave the addresses of women's shelters, which I'm sure he never sent any hygiene products to those women's shelters, but those hygiene products are expensive. And that was a good counter. Women's shelters always need that. Those things, and so it was a good move on the counter rhetoric to just put him in his place on that, and that was uncalled for. Anyway, I'm going back because this has been weighing again heavily on me. This is somebody that this situation has been a thing in my life really for the last 20 years, because I started undergrad in 2001, and as soon as I got there, I was introduced to some of the antics of this professor right away. Okay. And then all of a sudden it just comes to a screeching halt, and we find out that well, not going to find out there, but after years of being controversial, and some people even feeling that he was a bully, after years of that, all of a sudden he picked, I'm going to be, I need to be respectful of a deceased person, but I think he just picked a battle that maybe he didn't realize was a bigger battle than he wanted. And just last month, uh, you know, this, and it was never as much as I despised some of the things about this man, you know, there's a value of human life that I can appreciate. And it's hard. It, I cried. Believe it or not, even though I found this man, or found him to be a racist and a sexist and a homophobe and all these things that I don't like, when I found out that he died, and when I found out that he died by suicide, I cried that night. And I cried, because it was just such an abrupt end to a very, what I felt was a very painful and divisive chapter of the life, not of just of myself, but really of the lives of so many students and alumni of that school. But then I also, it was, I don't know, it was just hard to hear that, maybe I still haven't come to terms with it, honestly, because I don't know. I just don't know how you make you spend decades just, being just vitriolic, maybe, and if not vitriolic, still just sometimes just being mean spirited and saying mean spirited things. And then when the heat gets turned up a little too much, you then it comes to this. And I'm just worried, y'all. I'm very, very worried. Because I don't know, I don't know. I just don't know how I don't know how we make this a situation, how we make this country a situation where we have mutual empathy for one another, and we can just love and appreciate and be there for each other. I'm tired of the wars. I'm tired of the outrage. I've deactivated for the time being my Facebook and Instagram, just because of the constant outrage, and I don't want to see it anymore.